What's interesting to me. You have come on here and, like Donald Trump, reduce everything to narcissistic self-preoccupation and articulation of your. Let me finish. What you're saying here. So now, what happens to Black America happens to you. Black people are reduced to what? Can you, Ari? Can I finish my point? I didn't jump on her. Can I finish my point? Can I finish my point?
We're out of time. We put aside 8 minutes.
Narcissism, whether black or white, is problematic. Here's a woman incapable of arguing, therefore she articulates and overspeaks people. Bless your heart, little girl.
You disrespect Kamala Harris by saying you will call her whatever you want. I know you don't intend it to be that way. That's the history and legacy of white disregard for the humanity of black people.
So now you're calling me racist.
I didn't say. I just said you weren't a racist. That's what he does. You don't have to intend racism to accomplish
you are intending that.
No, you actually do, because racism, it doesn't even exist except for in ignorant people like his head. Racism is a way to describe discrimination. Discrimination is what actually exists, and that's not discrimination at all when you mispronounce somebody's name. This is just normalization of ignorance is what this is.
Your disrespect of Kamala Harris is part and parcel of a tradition of disrespect.
Why can't you just, Congresswoman,
why can't you just, I'm not calling you a racist. It's part and parcel of a tradition to disrespect. Like, what? So after that interview, he asked for a picture with Nancy Mace and apparently got her number, and then later sent her some weird text messages.
The record, a screenshot of a text message I received from the esteemed professor from Vanderbilt, Eric Dyson, after my CNN interview, begged me for photos. In this text, he says, after calling me a racist on CNN, shh, don't tell anybody, we look good together, and sent me a kissy emoji.
Without objection.
Then the guy says I'm gorgeous in all these photos. I don't think he's that bent out of shape on how anyone pronounces Kamala.
We vote for a black candidate. We've heard similar viewpoints espoused by similar people. Let me tell you this, that kind of lethal ignorance, that kind of viewpoint that disparages black people, number one, that condescends and talks down to us, number two, that draws specious, spurious parallels between white racism and black racism. Racism presupposes the ability to control a significant segment of the population economically, politically, and socially by imposing law, covenant, and restriction on their lives. Black people.
This is what this buffoon does. He speaks like a preacher, you know, and he just says a bunch of fast words, tries to make himself sound smart. He's really the epitome of intellectual bankruptcy.
Had no capacity to do that. Can we be bigoted? Yes. Can we be prejudiced? Yes. Racist? No. The unintelligence of the formulation is problematic when any black person says that. Number three, when black people began to spew this notion that 96% of black people are racist because we vote for a black candidate, suggests that all white people who vote for all white candidates are therefore also unavoidably racist. By that logic, everybody in the world is racist, and it balances out, doesn't it? It makes no sense. It is illogical and irrational to its core.
By this guy's logic, everything is white supremacy. The air you breathe is white supremacy. The weather is white supremacy based. This dude is such a buffoon. It's like, this is why I'm really worried about America, because of morons like him who just don't have the logical capacity to use his brain in a productive way. He's just stuck absolutely in the trench of discrimination, and he can't get out of it.
What we see when we hear these kinds of comments are lethal self-hatred, the denial of the humanity to black people that we see reflected in the dominant white society, refracted through the prism of our own black lives. Unmolested by enlightenment, such people are peripatetic. That is walking around virtuous, not in terms of their virtue, but virtuous, virtual expressions of degraded self-hatred. I feel sorry. I feel horrible when I'm in the presence of such mean-speaking, ignorance-spewing, incredibly cantankerous viewpoints that don't honor the integrity, the beauty, the diversity, the complexity, and the wondrous, rapturous intelligence of black people. That's why I hang with black folk all the time, because I know better than that. You heard?
So here he got hit with a fact that he really just couldn't lie his way out of. So he actually defends Trump a little bit. He must have got flack for this interview because he changed his tune real quick.
This campaign, that African Americans are doing better under my presidency in this economy, the Trump economy, than ever before.
Well,
what's the counter?
The fact is that recovery began under Obama, and the strengthening of the economy did begin under Obama.
You hear this
now,
shit?
What Trump?
It's pretty much a consensus at this point between black and white people that Obama is probably the second worst president we've ever had in human existence in America, next to Biden being the worst. And this dude still thinks that Obama was a good president. It's just because he can't go against his own race.
Could do, ironically enough. He did meet with the Congressional Black Caucus in 60 days in a way Obama didn't meet for 2.5 years. And he's done some more things for historically black colleges and universities. So his messaging could really, if he were to pair it with serious concern for African American people, man, he could make a leapfrog within African American communities.
Go from 10 to 20%.
He could go to at least 15% if he would trumpet that, and if he would not be so divisive in his rhetoric and ginning up the kind of bigotry that is hurt and harm black people.
See how they just make random, insane assertions and then give no facts or no anything to back it up at all? Like, that is called a claim. That is an assertion. That's not a fact, dude. You just like said your opinion, spewed it, and then left it as if people are just supposed to believe that. This is why intellectual bankruptcy is running rampant through our society right now. This is why we need to make America great again, because it's not great right now. We're in a bad spot. Like 30 years of this ignorance has ruined our country.
Another black person. The black community is broken up in general, and I don't want to partake in any of that. We're just ending a weekend where 71 black people were shot in Chicago, 13 of them killed, and we're not talking about that. Instead, we're talking about old tapes.
We're going to talk about all that. You have a problem?
No, we're not. I have a problem that we're doing wall-to-wall coverage on two
with who you're appearing on this?
No, I don't have a problem with him.
Candace, you have a problem with who you're appearing on this segment with?
I'm actually respectfully saying to him that we should both decline tearing apart the black community for the sake of television. And because MSNBC always invites me on to do that, I am declining to do so when our community is mourning the 71 people that were shot over the weekend. We need to stop this warfare and come together and talk about things that matter. And what is going on in Chicago is a bigger topic and should be a bigger topic on this network than what Trump said 18 years ago, whether or not it means that people change over 18 years, which, shocker guys, they do.
Well, I'm going to have the professor respond, but I have to respond on behalf of myself. You knew what you were invited to discuss, and we're happy you're here. It's very important to me in this show that we have these conversations and invite a lot of people of all perspectives. If there's a problem with that, I think you knew what the invite was to begin with. Professor Dyson, your thoughts?
You hear the garbage, man? This is what... So MSNBC has always been a just, like, intellectually bankrupt news program from the start. Did you hear how he just completely overlooked everything she said about the 72 black people that were killed over the weekend? Yet you want to bring up a clip that Trump said something back in 2000, like 20 years ago, you know, and he just skips over all that to say, oh, well, you don't have a problem with the, you knew what you were coming on here for. Like, dude, like, these people are ignorant.
Well, look, we're dealing with a person who has not only radically emboldened the prospects of bigotry in this country, the resurgent, recrudescent hate that he has articulated. If you can't beat him, coin him. So he opposes Pat Buchanan on the one hand when it's to his own political advantage, and then subsequently when the real beliefs emerge from Mr. Trump, we see that his vicious animus toward black people, gay people, Mexicans, Muslims, women, and the like is a kind of cornucopia of hate that has been brashly articulated by a man of manifest lack of serious coherence, chaotic intelligence, and the lack of an ability to really express himself by not only pulling upon the strands of history, but refusing to take into consideration what's going on today.
You hear, like, everything he just said, there is not a shred of evidence for. That is a assertion by him. Not a lick. You would think out of all the coverage that Trump has gotten over the last 50 years, there would be some proof of this bigotry and racism and disdain for women and black people. And like, besides a couple off the mark comments, you know, this is the type of insanity, man, that has destroyed America. Because people like him, it was an educator, bumbling buffoon, was a professor of a college.
So I think in one sense, if we're going to talk about if we're going to be honest about Donald Trump, he has not helped black people. He has not enabled African-American people to move forward. He's riding a crest and a wave of economic prosperity put in place by his predecessor, Barack Obama. He has refused to acknowledge the centrality of police brutality and unarmed black people being assaulted by people in this country. So the reality is that Donald Trump, while claiming through rhetoric to be for the blacks, what he has done is undermine the capacity of African-American people to exist in a country where it's not only about the economic facts and the wherewithal that we contend with, it is about the tone, it is about the rhetoric, it is about the atmosphere that has been unleashed here. And Donald Trump has done something very dangerous.
Tone policing and shit. Oh, I didn't like what he said. Did you hear the tone? The way he said it was wrong. It was white supremacy. Like, this dude is such a buffoon, man.
Dangerous and destructive. He can't see the difference between an anti-fascist and a person who supports it. He can't see the difference between somebody who's against black people and who is for them. So when he draws false equivalencies between both sides, he negates the ability to say, look, I believe in rational civil discourse in America, but I take a side morally and politically. We are now 53 years to the date.
For a quick second.
53 years, let me finish this. 53 years beyond the date of the voting. Let me finish this.
We'll go to the professor, and then we'll go back to you, Candace. Professor Dyson, you can finish, and then we'll go back to Candace.
Here we are, 53 years past the Voting Rights Act. We've seen the resurgence of an attempt to nullify and destroy that black vote. We've seen attempts to somehow circumnavigate around.
Think about the 19 claims he just made about Trump with no evidence to back any of it up. None.
Black political citizenry and agency. So all I'm saying is, if we're concerned about black people, we got to be concerned about poverty, inequality, lack of access to education, plus the
He's not concerned about black people. He's concerned about himself.
Violence that we see directed toward black people in this country.
Great way to end the conversation. Sorts of violence as being directed towards black people. Am I black? I'm curious if I'm black, because I'm a black conservative, and I am not hearing anything that is said about the fact that about 25 white Democrats assembled to kick me out of a restaurant yesterday to throw water and to throw eggs at me because I am a conservative that supports Donald Trump. The very same Donald Trump, okay? The very same Donald Trump that has not Obama. Obama did not do this. It's because President Trump has been slashing regulations, and it has brought this economy to a place it has never been at, okay? We have unemployment that's an all-time low for both women. You brought up women, you brought up gays, you brought up black people. Unemployment is at an all-time low across the board. You guys just refuse to acknowledge the truth that we are doing better.
A normal person, they make an assertion and then they give facts to back it up. But these race-baiting buffoons like him just lay out, shoot from the hip, 20 or 30 accusations with zero facts to back any of it up.
I want to talk about fascists. Antifa attacked me. This is an all-white gang that attacked me and attacked an all-black police force in Philadelphia, okay? And they claim to be fighting racism. How is it plausible, Professor, that you allowed this to happen to your community because you decided that because we are ideologically conservatives, you are okay with this? You're okay with the resurgence of the Democrats?
I haven't said a word.
Don't cut me off.
I haven't said a word.
You just said a lot of words.
I didn't say a word. I said nothing about you.
Now you're cutting me off.
I said nothing about you.
No.
I find what happened to you reprehensible, by the way.
I still have to keep it going. Candace, we're going to take a pause.
Candace, I didn't get to finish. You just went on for 5 minutes straight. You are attacking your argument.
I'm going to let you finish, but if you're calling out the professor, I have to give him time. So Candace, go ahead.
Liberals have been attacking conservatives, and you guys say nothing about it. Blacks were attacked yesterday, okay? And they were attacked because they support Donald Trump. Black support for Donald Trump has doubled since this time last year. You guys can try to pretend that he is pushing in a racist era in this country when, in fact, we know the Democrats are the racists, have always been the racists. The party's never switched, and you should know this as a civil rights person. You know,
the conservatives aren't out here attacking people in the streets. Like, it's the deranged leftist who devolves into violence every single time. It was the leftist and it was progressives that brought along the Hitler era. Conservatives have never devolved into a violent hate group like and progressives do every single time. Like, we know the logical end of leftism. It's Nazism. And if we don't stop this shit now, I promise that's where it'll lead. We are headed for a socialist catastrophe in this country if it doesn't get turned around now.
The history, you know, the people under the hood of the KKK,
let me respond.
were Democrats, and the party never switched. And
Candace, I'm going to give the professor a chance to respond.
To me yesterday and defend our community being attacked because we support Donald Trump, because we understand that we have better economic opportunities under him than we ever had in Obama.
And
shame on you for spreading in Obama.
Candace, I'm going to give the professor a chance to respond.
Under his administration, he allowed the bloodshed, and Trump wanted to send the National Guard, and the Democrats stopped him. I'm really done with this. I'm done with this
I don't want to have
narrative.
to talk over people, but we have to go back and forth.
Let's talk about the facts.
Candace, we're going to have to take a pause there. Couple things. You're making a personal attack on the other guests, so I have to give them a chance to respond.
Let me respond. First of all,
I also have to say, and Professor, I'm going to go back to you. I also have to say the topic of this discussion that we have tried and perhaps are failing on live television to discuss is Trump policy. The incident that you're referring to yesterday is not necessarily this topic.
It's a Democrat policy.
And so we'd have to gather more information.
Go up to them. It's
I'm going to go to the professor. Professor, you get a chance to respond, sir.
First of all, I never said anything about Ms. Owens. I never directed any animus, any particular rhetoric, any conversation toward her. So first of all, when she say you allowed it, first of all, I'm not God. I don't control the universe or weather. I don't control the atmosphere, geology, or geography. So I did not point these people toward you. I think it's reprehensible that any human being is, if you will, put out of a particular establishment because of her ideology. I think that that's problematic. So I did not suggest that. Number two, yeah, you are black and I am black. But that doesn't mean that automatically we agree with everything. Of course not.
We should respect one another.
Now, what I'm saying to you is that when you talk about me as disrespectful, here's what's interesting to me. You have come on here and, like Donald Trump, reduce everything to narcissistic self-preoccupation and articulation of your. Let me finish. What you're saying here. So now, what happens to Black America happens to you.
Like, I don't know if I've ever seen a person that loves his own voice more than this guy. Like, ever in my life. It's really that bad. Narcissistic preoccupation with white supremacy. Like, he just says stuff to try to sound smart, and it is so pathetic.
So black people are reduced to what? Can you, Ari, can I finish my point? I didn't jump on her. Can I finish my point? Can I finish my point?
We're out of time. We put aside 8 minutes.
Narcissism, whether black or white, is problematic. Here's a woman incapable of arguing, therefore she articulates and overspeaks people. Bless your heart, little girl.
Now, this is from a Monk debate, which was supposed to be on white privilege, or on political correctness, but since Michael Eric Dyson was there, they basically talked about white privilege and racism the whole time because he's a buffoon, and Jordan Peterson absolutely destroyed this dude. And let's listen to his completely just deranged response.
Let's assume for a moment that I've benefited from my white privilege. Okay, so let's assume that. That's fine. Well, that's what you would say. So, so let's say here. Let's get precise about this. Okay.
Was that very individual of you?
Let's get precise about this.
He just ignores him because the shit he says is just like dumb.
My present level of attainment or achievement, a consequence of my white privilege, and I don't mean sort of. I mean, do you mean 5%? Do you mean 15%? Do you mean 25%? Do you mean 75%? And what do you propose I do about it? How about a tax? How about a tax that's like specialized for me so that I can account for my damn privilege, so that I can stop hearing about it?
I'm glad he said that because it really shows how dumb this dude is. Like, absolute intellectually bankrupt this dude is.
Now, let's get precise about one other thing, okay? We'll get precise about one other thing. Now,
precise.
Yeah, precise, yes. And so, if we can agree, and we haven't, that the left can go too far, which it clearly can, then how would my worthy opponents precisely define when the left that they stand for has gone too far. You didn't like equity, equality of outcome. I think that's a great marker. But if you have a better suggestion and won't sidestep
it is a great marker.
Let's figure out
like anybody who believes in equity, who thinks it's possible, is a moron and a socialist and or a deranged, brainwashed leftist.
Dispense with my white privilege, and so that you can tell me when the left has gone too far, since they clearly can. And that's what this debate is about political correctness. It's about the left going too far. And I think it's gone too far in many ways. And I'd like to figure out exactly how and when, so the reasonable left could make its ascendance again and we could quit all this nonsense.
There is no reasonable left anymore. If there is, they're not willing to stand up to the radicals that have taken over the party.
Okay,
But that is to be complicit in the very problem itself, terminologically. You're beginning at a point that's already productive and controversial. You're saying, how can he get...
Do you hear how stupid this dude is? You're beginning at a point that's actually productive and controversial. Which one is it, dude?
Back. Who you talking about? Jordan Peterson? Trending #1 on Twitter? Jordan Peterson? With an international bestseller? I want him to tweet something out about me in my book. Jordan Peterson, right? This is what I'm saying to you. Why the rage, bruh? You're doing well, but you're a mean, mad white man, and you're gonna get us right. And
yeah, that's basically his response. He's a mean, mad white man. To Jordan Peterson's very thoughtful and insightful. That's what he says. Basically, you're successful, so you're a mean, mad white man.
I have never seen so much wine and snowflaking.
Oh, here, God.
There's enough wine in here to start a vineyard.
Here comes weasel words and shit that come out of these deranged leftist mouths.
And what I'm saying to you empirically and precisely, when you ask the question about white privilege, the fact that you ask it in the way you did, dismissive, pseudoscientific, non-empirical, and without justification, the truth is that white privilege doesn't act according to
because it's dumb, dude. It's dumb. People might have had white privilege the first 50 years of this country's existence, but now, for the last 100 years, like, come on, man. It's all in your head.
The degree to which we are willing as a society to grapple with the ideals of freedom, justice, and equality upon which it's based. Number two, what's interesting to me, you're talking about not having a collective identity. What do you call a nation? Are you Canadian? Are you Canadian by yourself? Are you an individual? Or are you part of a group? When America formed its union, it did so in opposition to another group. So the reality is,
over 200 years ago, you fool.
Is that those who are part of group identities in politics deny the legitimacy and validity of those groups and the fact that they have been created thusly, and then have resentment against others. All I'm asking for is the opportunity. The quotation you talk about, the difference between equality of outcome and equality of opportunity, that's a staid and retried argument, hackneyed phrase derived from the halcyon days of the debate over affirmative action.
No, it's not at all. It's really simple. If you're trying to engineer society's outcomes to get them to be all equal, you're going to cause way more problems than you fix. And anybody with a brain can see that.
Outcomes that can be determined equally, or are you looking for opportunity? If you free a person after a whole long time of oppression and say now you are free to survive, if you have no skills, if you have no quantifiable means of existence, what you have done is liberated them into oppression. And all I'm suggesting to you, Lyndon Baines Johnson, one of our great presidents, said, if you start...
One of the worst presidents ever known to existence.
Start a man in a race 100 years behind, it is awfully difficult to catch up.
Yeah.
So I don't think Jordan...
And deranged leftist thinking brainwashed him too.
Peterson is suffering from anything except an exaggerated sense of entitlement and resentment, and his own privilege is invisible to him, and it's manifest with lethal intensity and ferocity right here on stage.
No, dude, the entire United States is suffering from this
woke, political correct garbage that's coming out of your mouth.
Jordan, I'm going to have to let you respond to that if you would.
But there's hundreds of interviews of this moron just going on and on and on about racism and white privilege and all the deranged leftist nonsense that has taken over the airways.
The first is that saying that the radical left goes too far when they engage in violence is not a sufficient response by any stretch of the imagination, because there are sets of ideas in radical leftist thinking that led to the catastrophes of the 20th century.
Yeah, such as equity. It really, the radical left is what ended up going all the way to Nazism. It's usually the progressives who end up doing like the revolutions and the crazy shit, even though they're trying to make it seem like it's always the right and Donald Trump's actually the threat to democracy. No, these deranged radical leftists that are all filled in Congress, whoever decided to put Kamala Harris up, like, these people are insane. The fact that they threw her up there alone should tell you that there is no reasonable left.
That was at the level of idea, not at the level of violent action. It's a very straightforward thing to say you're against violence. It's like being against poverty. It's like, you know, generically speaking, decent people are against poverty and violence. It doesn't address the issue in the least. And with regards to my privilege or lack thereof, I mean, I'm not making the case that I haven't had advantages in my life and disadvantages in my life like most people. You don't know anything about my background or where I came from, and it doesn't matter to you because fundamentally I'm a mean white man. That's a hell of a thing to say in a debate.
No, it's an ignorant thing to say in a debate. Like, it just shows how dumb this dude is. Absolutely fried and deranged. And, you know, what's crazy is I was just talking to a customer yesterday. We got to arguing about political stuff. And the brainwashing is really working. It's actually working to these leftists. Like, the dude yesterday was arguing with me about stuff that has been debunked years ago. He's like 5 years behind on politics. It's the same way talking to these people in my family with Trump derangement syndrome. Like, they're speaking about Russia collusion and how Trump's best friends with Putin, even though that got totally debunked as fake, not real at all, not even the slightest. But this is the thing, is the current Democratic Party, they don't care. They want their base to live in this fabricated reality. And it's become obvious to everybody with eyes.